Hey everyone, it's me, Annette, and I'm here with Renee Rivera. Hey Renee.
Hi, Annette. Hey, everybody. Glad you're here.
I was talking to you today about what a little bit we just finished our last video on was some of the reasons why people don't go ahead and bring up that they were a victim, that they were abused, that type of thing. And you brought up something, forgotten trauma. Those with
Yeah.
severe PTSD don't have some memories until maybe later in life do they have it, and or they may never remember it in this lifetime, but maybe their siblings do remember it. But because of the PTSD and the damage that it did, brain-wise, that type of thing, they just don't have any memory of it.
Yeah. I could actually share a story to give an example of what you're saying, if that's okay. So they were an adult, I'm going to say 20s, maybe 20s or 30s, and had asked me actually to go to the police station with them after sharing with me that they have been having just these horrible nightmares. They've been having just all of a sudden just having these crazy nightmares and the same thoughts that keep coming up. And in the discussion discovered that they realized they were abused as a child. So we're talking 20, almost 30 years later, they're now recognizing that they were abused. But anytime before that, they denied it. They never believed it. They'd never remembered it. They thought for sure that person never touched them, never did anything. But by what was occurring and putting those pieces together, they discovered this definitely happened to me, and asked if I would go to the police department with them and place a report. So we did. We were able to do a report, thankfully. But that's one example of just a forgotten trauma, and completely, it was just a chunk of life that was completely forgotten by them, and they went along life as if it wasn't there. Other things were present.
Other things are present, pointing that something must have happened, but they didn't have the memory of it. It wasn't coming to mind to them. Makes sense.
Correct. Yeah.
I've been told so many times and read so many books about how our bodies, our brains, use it as a way, once we've had a severe trauma, to survive, to keep going, to make it to the next safe place type situation, and not dwell on what just happened type situation. And
break that up a little more. Break that up.
Well, sometimes you could talk to somebody, even let's say a car accident. They don't remember the car accident at all. There's nothing there. They were awake when it happened. They may not have even hit their head or anything like that, but it was a big wreck or whatever it is. And the next thing they know, they were in the hospital, and maybe they went to sleep, woke up, and there was no concussion, nothing, but they don't remember even being in a car wreck. And it was just their way, their brain, the severity of it all. That there's just no memory of the whole circumstance happening. And that's that PTSD that can kick in to suppress or protect the brain and everything else, because it's just so much all at once attacking. And then later on, it might just come out in little ways where all of a sudden they'll remember going, man, I keep having a dream, or I keep remembering when I see a siren going, I keep thinking I'm in a car, and that happened to me. I was in a car accident, I think, but I don't remember the car accident. And where their friends and family will go, yes, you were. Yes, you were in a car accident. You just don't remember. We didn't talk about it much afterwards because you weren't badly hurt or whatever it is. So it's amazing how our brains will work in moments like that, if that makes sense. It makes that amnesia be there.
Even for me, I'll even flip it a little bit. Amnesia in the sense of forgetting. I could never remember good memories of my childhood because the trauma was so big, I remembered the trauma, but I couldn't remember the little moments of niceness. I couldn't remember little moments of things with my brothers, or my sisters, or not until I was an adult, until I started getting healing for, well, I started as a teenager getting the counseling and the therapy and such to start working through it. And then as an adult, after having gone through so much therapy and counseling, then I started having, I guess you could say, the forgetfulness or the forgotten things that were totally lost started coming up. I started remembering like a dollhouse that was made for me. Started remembering, oh, we walked down to the pond together, my brothers and I, and that was the thing we did every winter, playing on the frozen swamp. So it can flip on you. The trauma can do that as well, suppress other things in your life that you don't realize that it's suppressing.
Yeah, it seems like it takes out a chunk of time, and whatever that front and the back of it is gets lost in the mix of it. I know I had a friend who lost their mother when they were like 9 years old. Well, 9 years old is not 3 years old, 5 years old. 9 years old is 9 years old. But when asking about details, they can't tell me. They go, well, I was told my mom died of this. Well, did you see her sick? I don't remember. There's no memory. There's a big chunks that are missing out of there because the hurt was so deep, I am sure, and traumatic for the family, and everything that happened because of it, selling of the house, moving. There's just so many traumatic events that happened. It wasn't till way down the line in her 40s that when somebody was asking a question, she realized she didn't really know. She didn't remember. Yet her sister could remember in detail, and her sister was younger than her.
Wow.
Like I said, we're all created so uniquely, and God knows our brain better than we do, for sure. And what happens up there, of course, it's in his hands. And I know some people struggle because they want to remember, but they can't. And my words to them is pray and ask God. Put it in his hands. Don't stress about it. Make sure you're getting plenty of sleep. Don't let your imagination go off and try to develop a memory. Like you talked about how you guys went down to the water and how fun it was. And the other, sometimes you could think those things because maybe your brothers or sisters told you about it. But go ahead and just let that memory come back to you. It's going to come back to you. And if you're constantly struggling with PTSD, that's a whole different subject altogether. But I wanted to talk about this forgotten trauma that all of a sudden can come up. And people are wondering, well, why are you bringing that up now? And that's so hurtful for the person who's like, I just realized, I just put the pieces together. From a friend whose mother had died, she actually went through a grieving process that she didn't remember going through at 9 years of age. So she actually went through that grieving process, and it was beautiful. And she was able to actually ask questions of her siblings, ask questions of her dad, because she only was starting to remember bits and pieces. And she doesn't still to this day have a full picture of it, but she recognized that she needed to grieve properly for her mom. And it was just a short thing that she went through, just a small period of time, but it was good for her. And it was something that got settled in her heart because she was never settled. Because people would always say, well, how did your mom die? And she was like, well, she was sick and she had cancer. And if everybody was fine with that answer, but if they weren't fine with that answer and went further, well, that must have been tough for you or whatever it is. In the back of her mind, she was thinking, no, it wasn't. It wasn't tough for me. But that's what the world wants to hear. So she'd let the comment just fly away. It wasn't tough for her because she couldn't remember.
Yeah. And so nobody pushed.
Nobody pushed, right. Of course I did. Ask a lot of questions, Renee.
And it's okay. The thought that came to mind when you were saying that is allow the person to go through it as if it were fresh, even if it was 9 years, 20, 50 years ago. understand that this is fresh for them. It's like new news, and so they have to walk it and have to walk through the stages as well. And God is so good to create our bodies the way He has. I mean, so we're not here to knock a forgotten trauma and saying that's not normal. We're here to say it is normal, but also to recognize your body and continue to be going to the creator of your body and say, help me to unfold these pieces, like you said, but unfold even how I've been protecting that. And sometimes you're going to work through it in layers. I have a friend that used to say sometimes working through trauma is like working through an onion. You're going through the layers and stuff. And I can see where that would definitely work in a forgotten trauma kind of thing. Going through those layers of, wow, I just realized this actually happened, because you're just not having the memory. And then after the memory comes, then you've got to go through the emotions, because it's so real and it's so now.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's so present that you have to walk through that. And the other suggestion is get professional help as well. Get a good Christian counselor that can walk you through those things and help you decipher, to do it well.
Do it well.
To do it well. Yeah.
Yeah.
So thanks, Norman. Thank you for sharing the story about your friend, and I'll be praying for her. And those of you that might have some forgotten trauma as well, ask God. I mean, the other thing is sometimes we can overanalyze and go, oh my gosh, they're acting like this because they've got forgotten trauma. That may not be the case. But
Correct.
sometimes there are things in our life that we're responding out of a trauma that we had that maybe we weren't putting things together. So it sounds like your friend asking relatives pieces that really has helped in her storyline, I guess you could say.
Helped with her storyline. What did I actually do during that time? What was it like for me?
Yeah.
That type of thing. And what it was like for her, she completely shut down. She was very silent, I guess, during the time her mom was sick, because she didn't want to cause trouble. So she was a very good girl. She said, I was told by everybody I was just silent, and I did what I was supposed to do and got my grades at school, and there was no acting out, because she already had a sibling doing that. And so that was already enough going on. And then when it happened that her mom did die, she just went silent for a long time. Didn't talk unless she had to talk. And then one day, I guess she just popped out of it, is what her family said, where she just started talking again and things were good. But that whole period, she doesn't remember.
Oh. So thank God she had others to help account for what happened.
Yeah.
And that she was able to ask. Amen.
Yeah.
So we're here just to encourage you guys that may have forgotten trauma that you're walking through. Take the time, walk through it. Ask your family or whomever was around during that time, who's a safe person to ask, if they remember the details. And we just pray that you're able to work through that.